Sure. So, my name's Ben Niehaus, Director of Member Services with the WASB. I started in this role July 1st. A little background on me. Prior to coming to WASB, I was school superintendent for 10 years, most recently at the Florence County School District for the past 8. Transitioned into the WASB this past July in this role. And part of my work is working with the policy services team and the policy council, such as Scott and Dan Mallon and some of the others. So what I'm going to do, I'll let Scott introduce himself here before I go back and do an overview of the PRG, and then I'll turn it back over to Scott so he can speak a little bit to the quick check. And any questions at any time, just jump on in and interrupt us, and we'll go through this. And sometimes I get going too quick because I respect your time, want to go through it quick. I know in this one you're going to be somewhat familiar with board docs, but I'll show you how the PRG integrates with it. So that's a little bit about me. I'll let Scott introduce himself.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Scott Mikic. I'm one of the attorneys with WASB. Started with WASB back in 2004 after graduating law school down in Madison, and was with them until around 2011. Moved to Iowa for a couple years and was the executive director for HR for the Des Moines public school system. After a couple years in Des Moines, decided that we wanted to move back to Wisconsin, and found a job doing HR and legal work for the Kaukauna School District up in the Fox Valley. And about 3 years ago, WASB contacted me and asked if I was interested in coming back. So it's been just slightly over 3 years that I've been back with WASB, doing legal work, policy work, anything that comes along. So it's great to meet all of you.
Okay, thanks, Scott. So what I'll do is I'll do a screen share here myself. And can you guys see the board docs diligent screen on your end? Oh, might have froze up.
We don't see it yet, but it does say that you started screen sharing.
Yeah,
Yep.
can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, something, it's like my computer locked up. Uh-oh. Oh. My mouse moves and my screen is froze, but it's spinning its wheels. I'll just give it a second here. I think it's computer. Well, I'm trying to make it have it stop the screen share, and it will not. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, yep, we can hear you.
Your images are all froze. I'm doing a Control-Alt-Delete to try to get to the task manager, and that's not working either. This is interesting.
I wonder if you came out and came back in.
Well, oh, here we go. Wait a minute.
Yep.
I got
Yep.
there. 1 second. I think it's actually my PC. I think it's spinning its wheels here a little bit. So
I was going to say, otherwise, I could probably bring the PRG stuff up and do a screen share from my end.
We can see it now.
Okay, now, okay, not sure. Sorry about that. I think that's what I want to try to do, though, is get to. Okay, I lost what I need to do real quick. My apologies. I just got to go and grab my bookmark and get it back into Edge. What I'm doing now, well, you have board docs. This is just a thing because we have the demo. We have to go from one browser to the other and do some of those types of things here. So I'll get right back in here. Now, there we go. And I just get into a test district and, okay, let's try this again. So you can see the board docs and everything. This is probably, you're probably familiar with a little bit of the view here. So basically what I've done, again, ignore all of that, is I am going to just go right in. We have this test school district, and going to show you how the PRG integrates, the policy resource guide integrates with the board docs platform. So as you're a board docs district already, if you decide to go this route, we're just going to activate the board docs policy platform on your end to have it integrate with the policy resource guide. Because you're already a board docs subscriber, there's no additional cost for that. We basically just got to turn it on, if you will. So up in the upper right hand corner here, once that happens, this piece of board docs, the active, draft, and retired, will be activated. The bottom three then are tied to the policy resource guide subscription. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go right into the policy resource guide. So again, I'm right in the board docs platform. It integrates perfectly with it. And you can see over here are the different series in the policy resource guide, from a 100 series to the 900 series. The PRG, I'm just going to start real quick high level before I maybe just go through and show how it works and how it integrates. With the policy resource guide, in addition to all the policies, sample policies, background information, I'm just clicking here quickly so you can kind of see the number of policies there are in each of the series. There is an additions and an updates section that will notify and keep track of changes as we upload and update different policies, rules, and exhibits. So actually recently, and I'm going to have an email update going out to our PRG subscribers probably early next week, because of some exhibits that we updated with change in law, with ed options having to notify about youth apprenticeship in the educational options notices now. But you can see by date, we prioritize the topic and what those rules, policies, or exhibits were. It has a nice search feature here. So if you set into a system of review and you want to take a look at it every quarter, every month, every 6 months, you can put your dates in. For example, if you wanted to see what was everything from July 1st of this year to present, right here are, if I'm in the addition section, these are those here, but it goes all the way back in the catalog, back to 2016. So the additions would be new policies and already identified topic areas, and then updates, anything that, or additions are new policies, new policy topics, or it could be a new policy in an already identified topic area, such as we had 1 or 2 sample policies, we added a 3rd one. Whereas the updates are those policy topic areas already identified, and we have a new exhibit, or we revise, or as you can see here, there was actually a couple of exhibits that were deleted. That's because they were replaced with a new series of exhibits. So everything's organized there, gives you a little background about what the change is. And again, you can go through and see from high to low in a medium, what are those priority areas. We do send out some notifications, and one of the things I want to try to do in addition is to send out a little bit more frequent notifications, particularly on our high priority policy areas. So that's a really nice feature that the PRG brings. So let's dive into the PRG a little bit. I know Allison just touching base with you a little. You were looking at, open enrollment's a topic matter before you and the board. So I'm not going to go through all those policies in detail, but let's just go there because it's something you're somewhat familiar with. So say you're looking at wanting to revise, add your open enrollment policy. So I'm just going to click on that. And you can see on this one, we actually have a lot of policies and a lot of rules, and a lot of intricacies with open enrollment. And sometimes I'm just going to jump down here on a number of our policies. We will have background information. So if I just go down to 424 here on this one, non-public school students and just participating in district courses, you can see there's a key policy considerations. It just gives a lot of background, all the legal considerations for admin and board's review of what's the importance of this policy, what are the implications. You'll see that on a number of them. You say, well, it's not here with all of that. That's because as I go through and click on these policies, you're going to see a lot of descriptors on the front ends of them. So they probably just took care of it that way. And it's what it is here is it's going through, again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but in this area, it's been identified through options, through whether it's law, it's things that Scott, Dan Malin, Barry Forbes, others have seen, experience from districts is in some of the policy topic areas, they put a number of samples together to try to give as much choice for the boards for local customization for what the priorities are. So this policy one, for example, I'm not going to read this to you, but it goes through and explains what's this policy doing versus 2, 3, and 4. What's the primary pieces of it, and it just describes, and sample rule 1 probably goes with this. So it gives you a descriptor before you start seeing the policies, which typically also will have editor's notes of choices that can be made, or maybe a little bit more that it's explaining a particular piece of that policy. And like in this one, it's probably referring something with K8, so the paragraph may not be applicable, so it could be deleted out. So all the policies, regardless of topic area, are going to look pretty much identical, with more or less policies, rules, and sometimes the exhibits. So a little bit about how this actually integrates and works, and how do you utilize the board docs feature to take advantage of the integration between the two of them. So let's say, as an example, I want to just go back 1 second here. Okay, I just wanted to get back to a main view. So what you can do is a couple things. You could click on the policies individually. Say you're reading from this view and making a determination that, well, we really are interested in sample policy 1. I can copy that into a draft section in the policy platform on the policy resource guide, or you can simply copy them all into your drafts folder, and it'll move them all. It doesn't alter anything, the policy resource guide, it just simply makes a copy of them. And for example, this is something I play around with and the other staff does. You can make your own destination books, but by default, you'll have a policy manual. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy all these policies and rules over to that policy manual. I hit select book, policies are copied over. Now what I can do is I exit the PRG. I can go into my draft folder. And again, this is a template, so you're not seeing all the series, but right here in the 400 series, now everything is copied over into a draft section of the policy manual. And now you can start doing your work. So for example, Allison, say you've reviewed all this and knowing your board and where they're going, you can take them all forward, but you're like, well, let's get this prepared for a first read, sample policy 1. What you can do in here too is typically what I do is I right click on them and duplicate them so I don't affect the original one in the draft. And you can just, here's my copy sample policy that I just duplicated. I can go up, hit edit. And in here, now what I can start doing is if you want to retitle it to whatever it is, first read of the name of the title. You want to select the status. It is going to be a first read. And you can go down here, you'll notice it looks that you have the same descriptors. You have the policy before you. The other thing I wanted to share real quick too is you can download them into Word. If you'd like to, you can save them, you can download them into Word and take them from that format. But you also see all the legal references, everything are there. But in this, you can edit. So you have an editor's note that's explaining something with regards to the final sentence here. On your first read, maybe your board wants to see that. You want them to see that. Union High School District should include the following additional sentence. You guys aren't a Union High School, I don't believe, are you? But so for example, you'd just be like, oh, we're not a union high school, board doesn't even have to see that, just gonna take that out. And from there, you just continue going through it. So once you have that, you hit save. And obviously your board has access to this. The first read, you go into your policy committee meeting, board reading, there's the first read of policy 423 on sample one on full-time school open enrollment. So that's basically how the system works. Probably somewhat similar to how you use board docs with your board agendas and documents similarly. Real quick, I think the last thing I just want to kind of show you, and again, I know I'm going through this very quick, but I really wanted you to see how the ease of use of the integration of the board docs and the PRG is. Imagine you've had that first read meeting, everything looks good, policy committee says great, or it's at a full board meeting. Then you come back in and you can again duplicate that first read so as not to, these are records as you're aware, even though they're electronic. So once it's gone to a public meeting, you have your record, you want to keep track of it. And again, you can create all kinds of different folders and things. You retire, policies can be retired. So even though you change, replace, you've got a place to put them. Somebody says, hey, what did that policy look like previously? There's a retired section. But here, what I did was I made a copy, and now, for example, I'm going to go through and your board's approved it. So it's no longer the first read, it's the final of the open enrollment policy. We're going to make this active. And then, for example, too, these are our draft folders, the PRG series here. I'm going to put it into the active section 400. So imagine you just gonna upload it in there, and it was adopted today on the, I think it's the 16th, right, or the 15th, whatever, close enough. You keep your dates when it was last revised. Right click, get rid of the table in there, and do all your final edits. And once you do all that and you simply hit the save button. The biggest thing is once this hits active and you hit save, it's going live, it's going public instantaneously. So I hit save on that. And now imagine like when the public comes in, as you're aware with using it, has the public site link, they would click on that, and in the active section right here, with again, dummy site, we had a previous one in here, but here's the one that I just did. There's the date. So the public would come in and see all your policies listed through, and there's the one you just updated and made active. And it's online and live. So that's basically a real fast, quick overview of how it integrates with the board docs. So we can, if you go that direction, we can take time to go through that again, but the board docs also does provide a training for it on how that integrates. So that's really how the PRG, the policy resource guide, integrates with board docs. The one last thing I want to show you very quick before I turn it over to Scott is you also have access to the web-based platform of the policy resource guide. Sorry, this is kind of a mess from my computer froze up. So the web-based platform is nearly identical. It's just not integrated with board docs. Why is that not? Here we go. So and what's nice with this is one too, where maybe some of your other administrators, leadership team, building principals, because there's all that wonderful background information in that, you can use it as a training tool too, or they can use it to identify background I just picked student harassment, key policy considerations, and it's going to go through and give an overview of that policy, things that we have to be aware of and think of, and that. So anybody can that you authorize can have access to this also in the web base. So if you have principals other in your leadership team that don't have board docs access, or you want to keep that limited, obviously, on who is utilizing the board docs, you could authorize users in this and they can access the exact same information in here, but it's not going to impact what's published on your website, anything like that. One other thing I wanted to show real quick too, there's so much here, and I know time's limited, is with the policy resource guide, you also get webinars that have been done that are associated with different policy topic matters. So those are always in here, administrator contracts, FMLA. There's a variety of topics, and that all comes with the policy resource guide itself. So that's kind of a real quick overview of the policy resource guide. And any questions any of you have at this time? Nothing? Okay. And we can go over some of the pricing that at the end, but I think at this time, Scott, I'll turn it over to you to speak a little bit about the quick check process and any other questions you may have specific to our policy services.
All right, can everyone see my screen there? So I'm scrolling through. Kind of a WASB letterhead banner at the top.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, so what I have there that I'm sharing, this is kind of the final product of what a quick check would provide. So the quick check memo that I send out after doing the entire quick check process, this is what you would receive. This one ended up being about 20 pages. So the first couple pages just explain to the district the work that I did and what the following tables will show them. So table 1, table 2 through 4, table 5, table 6, etc. So we'll just kind of skip over that and just dive into the tables. The purpose really of the quick check is to provide school districts with an assessment of policies that they don't have, that they by law need to have. So that first table there, you can see at the top, it says mandatory policies or rules where I did not find, excuse me, in looking through the policy book, I did not find a policy that satisfies the requirement. And so I put in the PRG suggested policy number, the PRG suggested name, and then the reason why. And there's some citations there to the federal code and ESEA and all of that. So for this district that I was doing this PRG quick check for, they had one policy that based on our assessment, we felt like they needed to add this policy. It doesn't come up too often that a district has is missing, just flat out missing a policy that they need to have. But every now and then that does come up. So typically that's table 1, a mandatory policy that just doesn't exist. Then table 2 gets into, and actually 2, 3, and 4 get into those policies where the district has a policy, but there's something that's outdated in the policy. So typically what we'll do is we'll look at the last time a district sent a policy to the Board of Education for a review and update. So whatever that last date is at the bottom of one of the school board's policies, if that date is prior to some big legal change, then that'll tip me off to take a look at it a little bit with a little bit more critical eye. So like in this situation for this district, their policy 133, filling board vacancies, whatever date they had in there was prior to the date where the legislature added this 60-day period for filling board vacancies. And so I explained to them, here's your board policy as it exists now, and it needs to add this chunk that the legislature added in, this 60-day vacancy requirement. And then as you can see there, some open enrollment changes, but these were all of the different policies as I went through that had a date flag, for example, that was in 2010, but we knew there was a law change in 2015, or their date maybe was 2015, and we knew there was a law change in 2020. And so each one of those policies, then I look at them a little bit more closely and find out whether or not they need to have something that's changed in their policy to get it up to the current legal standards. So each of these, like I said, just represents a policy. These are the first table 2, I consider those to be mandatory policies. So there are mandatory policies by law. Every school district has to have that policy. And in this mandatory policy, it appeared to be outdated, and here's the reason why. And then table 3, critical policies. These are policies that we really feel like every district needs to have. It's critical to operations. And in this situation, there was a critical policy. And once again, something within that policy appears to be outdated. And here is all the reason and rationale as to why it looks like that policy is outdated. And then finally, table 4 is the recommended policies. And again, outdated. We're kind of going through a little bit of an overhaul of the quick check right now, and we probably will combine the critical and recommended policy tables, because I don't know that any of us really have a clear understanding of the difference between a critical policy and a recommended policy. So I think we're just going to merge those into one table and either call it critical / recommended, or just change the name a little bit. So those are the ones that are outdated. And then the final process that I go through as I do the quick check is I look through each of the policies, sometimes pretty quick, just kind of skimming through and just seeing if anything catches my eye as far as odd language, maybe some outdated language. For example, in this district, they had references to English language, their goal to meet English language arts standards by 2017. And this was a quick check that I did in 2021. So I just said, hey, you have goals in there that you were trying to meet by 2017. You might want to think about putting your most legal or your most recent goals in there. Here, there was no language about which individuals have the authority to contact district legal counsel. Some districts say the board president or the district administrator are the only ones that can do that. And so I just let them know that that might be something to think about. Policy requires 2 board meetings to have a revision, and just made a suggestion on something that they might want to think about to kind of soften that language if there ever were an emergency situation. Let me see. There was one that kind of caught my eye earlier. I wish I would have jotted down the language, but it was a situation where I noticed that the board had 2 policies that essentially said, they kind of said the same thing. One of the policies was outdated and needed a new piece of language added to it if the board was going to keep it. And the other policy was up to date. And so my suggestion to them was, delete this policy that's outdated, or if you're going to keep both policies, make sure you update this second policy over here so that they both say the exact same thing. But my recommendation was not to have 2 policies that say the exact same thing generally. And so again, the bulk of this, as you can see, are just recommendations as I go through policy by policy, administrative guideline by administrative guideline. Here I clicked on a hyperlink that they had in a board policy, and it was a broken hyperlink. So I let them know that they might want to make sure that that is something that gets updated. Outdated references to No Child Left Behind. Cross references to youth options and course options. So just old stuff, basically, as I go through policy by policy. And I let them know anything and everything that I see. And then for this district, they had a lot of old policies. And so just to help them out, I took all the policies that were in my spreadsheet and just arranged them in order of the date that the board did a last revision, and said, hey, here are the policies that you really kind of want to focus on, these policies that haven't been updated in 25 years. Take a look at them. If it's something that you think is fine, change the date so it lets the world know that you guys are on top of your insurance management policy, or press coverage at board meetings. Some of those, the policy might be fine. I maybe didn't notice anything as I was going through the quick check, but it at least lets the world know, like I said, that the board is on top of things. So like I said, this was a table that I did for this district. A lot of other times I haven't done this for other districts because they haven't been quite as behind in their policy updating. But that is a quick check in a nutshell. The process usually takes a month, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, just depending on what I've got on my plate and how fast certain things go. But usually a district will send a physical copy of their policy manual, their administrative guidelines. They'll send it down to Madison. One of our policy service staff will spend a week or so taking all of those policies and putting them into a spreadsheet that has the last revised date, the name of your policy. They'll kind of align it to how we would recommend things in the PRG. So that process usually takes a week or two for you guys to get stuff to Madison, for Madison to do their stuff, and then for me to pick up the materials from Madison, get that up to my office, and then actually sit down and go through each one of the policies page by page. Usually takes a couple weeks, 3 weeks. Like I said, if things are really busy, or if there's conferences or convention or something like that, might take a little bit longer, or the holidays might take a little bit longer. But that's kind of the process for the quick check. Any questions on that?
So you talked about if there are duplicate policies. So there are a lot of things in our policy book that I don't believe need to be policies, or are, you know what I mean? They're more like processes and procedures. Is that something you would note as well?
Yeah. If there's something that, you know, hey, this doesn't need to be a board policy, and different districts are a little bit different. Everyone kind of handles things differently as far as whether or not something would get moved from a board policy over to an administrative rule or an administrative guideline, because perhaps there's valuable information there. It's just not something that the board needs to have their fingers in. It's not something that they need to be approving. It's something, like I said, it's an administrative guideline. It's an administrative rule that gives guidance to district office or building principals on how to handle something, but it doesn't necessarily need to be signed off on by the board. So yeah, recommendations can certainly be made on that too. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great.
Ben, Allison, any other specific questions? Anything Scott shared or from mine?
No, I don't really have any questions. I think this, you know, right now a lot of our policies are PDFs. And so this would definitely, you know, help us organize them at least.
Okay. So talking about what do these services cost? I think just going right from Scott with the quick check. So the quick check's $4,500. So basically everything just Scott said, that's the price point for it. For him to go through that and all the preparation and putting everything together. The policy resource guide. The initial purchase for a policy resource guide is a 3-year commitment for $13,500, which can be paid annually those first 3 years at $4,500 each. After the 3 years, the subscription becomes an annual subscription and the price drops down to $2,500. There are on occasion an inflationary increase. So there's a possibility, you know, the 2,500 can be 2,750 or something at some time. That's what it's been at this time. So that's what the pricing is for those two. And the nice thing with the quick check and the policy resource guide together too is if the quick check is done, there's a better correlation of identifying, you know, based on the numbers of, hey, go to the policy resource guide and right here are sample policies. You can look at either, maybe it's some small change in your existing policy. You like everything in there, but there's just something missing, that piece is there, or you've got other samples, rules, and exhibits to pull from.
Yeah, and I moved my screen around. I was gonna say, as Ben was mentioning, that you can see in the quick check for like school safety plans, I'll give my rationale as to why maybe there needs to be some changes to the policy. And then I'll say refer to PRG 720 or emergency school closings. I'll give my rationale and then say refer to PRG 723.3. So like Ben said, the nice thing about doing a quick check and having the PRG is that, you know, like you just have that resource to say, okay, maybe we should just wipe away our current policy and look at just bringing in a completely new one of the sample PRG policies, or at least you've got a full policy that's written from top to bottom that you can take a look at and see if you like.
And that's another nice piece of it is, let's just fast forward and say you do end up going this route and you get everything up to date after a quick check with the updates and additions that we provide to the PRG and the communication. If you stay on top of it through the policy committee, you're looking at it on a quarterly basis every 6 months. You see, just like I showed you early on, here are the high priority policies, the mediums and lows. And I know I had that up there very briefly, but even just going back to July 1st, it's not like there's 36 policy updates in a 6-month window. It's very realistic and manageable, that if once you get that baseline there and your policy book is solid, that you stay away and avoid like what Scott was identifying, showing like, you know, with that district gets policies from 1996, 2005, because things fell off there. So with the updates and the additions, how we want to communicate that all to keep boards and administrators aware of changes and when they occur, you know, it's kind of like eating the elephant one bite at a time versus, you know, looking at it every several years and trying to catch it all back up at one time. The other nice piece with the policy resource guide too is you have access to Scott and Dan Mallon as the staff counsel. So for example, you're looking at, I'm just looking at his screen, student transportation services, something was identified in yours, you go into ours and there's 3 sample policies and boards looking at like, well, you know, we like sample policy 1. What's the difference between that and 2? We're not understanding it. Those phone calls, those email correspondence and that, those are all part of the subscription cost. It's not every time you email, every time you call to inquire, question, ask for something, clarification, that's part of that. The only time you would ever see something in the WASB or always be upfront, there would never be anything hidden, any surprises, is let's say there's a policy topic matter that's not in the PRG that's important locally, or you see a sample or a sample or 2 of ours and it's just not quite right. And you're like, well, can you take parts from this sample, take this, but then we want to do this locally, where they have to maybe draft your own unique policy up front. They're going to tell you about that and say, yeah, we can surely do that for you. But because it's not a policy that's already there, and it's going to take a little extra time, they would let you know what that cost is if that was a situation that would arise. But general inquiry, minor modifications, I used the PRG for 10 years in 2 different districts. To be honest, I don't ever remember a time getting a billing. I worked a lot with Dan Mallon at that time, and you know, hey, my board's got a little bit of an issue with this sentence, you know, and Dan would be like, that's fine, that can come out, but then we got to also address it 3 paragraphs down, that same thing's referenced to again, but then I would suggest we make a slight tweak to this paragraph that meets the need of the legalities, what your board wants, and you don't get a magical, well, that was, you know, $300 in legal time or anything. There'll never be any surprises. It'd always be upfront if you wanted something really substantial or unique. The other thing I'll share with that too is with this also is, let's say you were in a situation where you identified a policy topic and you asked Scott or Dan or somebody to write that policy, and we're like, you know what, that's something we need in the PRG. We're not going to bill for it, put it in the PRG for other subscribers. It doesn't happen a lot, but want to let you know if there was something like that. We found, you know what, that's a policy topic area we would really like to have in the PRG. Thanks for identifying that. We put it together and we incorporate it in there in a situation like that. We're not going to be billing you and not billing the others, if you will. So, you know, we're a member organization that wants to serve our members as best we can and make things as efficient as we possibly can. And so that's where the price points are on those. Again, integration with the board docs, because you're already utilizing board docs. We just flip a switch on for those that don't have it. We there's a discount there. It's an additional $600. You guys will not have to pay that. Oh, the other thing too, Allison, I'm sorry, you might have answered this for me before. Do you subscribe to the Focus, the policy?
Yeah.
Okay, so you subscribe separate to that right now, which is a $240 annual subscription. As a PRG subscriber, you do not pay that additionally. That's just part of the PRG subscription. So
Cool.
helps a little bit on the net end. Scott, I don't think I'm missing anything else on PRG. If you don't mind me putting you on the spot, if I missed anything, I think that's pretty much it.
No, nothing that I can think of. And I'm in the middle of wrapping up integrating a PRG for a district. And, you know, there is, in addition, if you wanted additional help in integrating the PRG and basically kind of replacing your entire policy book with the PRG, that's also something that we could sit down and talk about as far as cost and all that stuff too. So some districts say we want the PRG and we really just want it there so that we have a full library of the policies and the background information and the administrative rules. And other districts say we want the PRG because we really intend to just kind of replace everything that we currently have with PRG samples and then depend on WASB to give us monthly or quarterly or every 6 months, give us a spreadsheet that shows all the updates that need to be made. So it's customizable, and that's really kind of the goal, is to make it customizable so it's something that's for your district. You know, not just kind of a cookie cutter thing that can fit every district. It's special for your district, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds good. I'm a fan. I've used it before, so this is really helpful. And then I can kind of share this with the full board, and hopefully it's something we'll be looking to start. You know, it's perfect to do spring, summer, because we'll have a little bit more time, because I know there's a lot of work to do. So the timeline works too, as far as how long it would take you to get through that first piece. And yeah, so I think probably a discussion in January, and then we'll be able to let you know what the full board.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation.
And Allison, Ben, I mean, if there's something too during that, where you're thinking, you know, hey, Ben, can you kind of be on standby, even though you have it recorded, just let me know. You know, I can jump back on real quick. And I just did that for another district that actually just did purchase it. And one of the board members just wanted had a couple quick questions. We jumped on for 15, 20 minutes with the admin and just answered those things again. No problem doing that.
Thank you. That sounds good.
But
All right.
okay, well, if there's anything else, Allison, you know how to get a hold of me, and we appreciate the consideration. And like I said, you know where to find us if you have anything else.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. And hopefully, if nothing else, we'll see you down in convention in January, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care. Have a good evening.
You too. All right. I like lost my screen. I don't even know what's happening right now. Okay, so I don't know if we have to do an official thing, because
I don't think so, no.
yeah,
Because
so
it was never started, so.
right. So I'll just make sure I just